Another episode of your favorite podcast, the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast, where we share things that you can do to find ultimate intimacy in your relationship. So hopefully it's working. We had a long-time listener write an email in and asked us if we do a podcast on the subject. I think it's going to be a really good one, although their circumstances a little more unique. I think it'll apply generally across the board to what so many couples face in their marriage, and just kind of having conflict or things that they just can't agree to and how to get past that. So should be a good episode.
I think this is going to be one of our episodes that people are like, I can't believe you said that.
Really?
I do. I feel
You're
like,
already feeling it. So you're just feeling the vibes, huh?
I feel like this is such a personal topic when it comes to intimacy and a lot of different beliefs on it. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to talk about either. So
well, okay. And again, this person wrote in. They shared an experience and said, "Hey, I've never heard you talk about this on a podcast subject." So again, Amy and I are not therapists. We're just giving you our opinion as a married couple as to how we would handle this if this was a situation in our marriage. And again, I think it can apply to a lot of different things that people go through in marriage. So starting out.
well, first off, sorry, we don't have our therapist today. That couldn't happen today. So we are not trying to take his place. We are
definitely not trying to take his place. Yeah.
We are just doing this without him today. And yeah, so we will do our best.
So it's amateur hour.
It probably
for
would have been a
therapy
good
day
day for him. But
yeah, for sure.
no, I think we've tackled this exact same situation, subject, and in our own marriage. So I think it's, first off, disclaimer, hopefully everyone will realize that everyone believes different, thinks different, and this is just our feelings. So please don't come attack us after if we say something that you're like, I feel differently. That's okay. We get that everyone feels different, and we're just gonna be honest. I think
we found what works for us.
We're always honest, but this is a tricky topic. So we're gonna be honest with how we kind of felt and how we would deal with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So we'll tee it up. We'll share what they wrote. No, I'm gonna give a summary. So, this couple's been married for a while. They have 4 kids. And they said they have a really good marriage. The wife they both talked about it, and they both have decided that they don't want any more kids. They feel like for various reasons, financially, the family's where they want it to be. They feel really good about things. They just don't want to have any more kids. And so the wife wrote in and expressed that she is she's terrified that they're going to get pregnant again, and it makes her feel anxious and uncomfortable during intimacy, wondering, oh my heck, are we going to mess up or is something going to happen? So she's approached her husband about getting a vasectomy, and even though those are not 100% permanent, I had one a year ago, and I'm still careful because of horror stories. But anyways, she's approached her husband about getting a vasectomy, and he is very adamant about not getting one. He may have his reasons. There could be, let's face it, when they're down there with a knife, that's a little nerve-wracking. And honestly, I was this exact same way. I held out for many years in our marriage because I had my reasons for not wanting to get one either. So that his reasons, they might be
a little different than Nick's. Nick was just scared.
Yeah, am I going to work the same? Like, you shouldn't be using tools down in that area. Anyways, I had one. Amazing piece of cake. No big deal. I have less worries. Less worries. But, so
we understand that this is a topic that can be tricky in marriages because everyone has different feelings about this, beliefs about this. There's a lot of people that are anti this. There are a lot of people that are like, yeah, best thing ever. Like, we get that people come from all different areas with this.
Yeah, and we're just sharing what she posed, right. And this podcast is going to apply to so many different aspects of marriage,
not just vasectomies. That's not all we're
exactly.
Talking about,
it's going to apply to anything that you are disagreeing about in marriage. So. He doesn't want to get one. She's very nervous about being intimate, and so there's this conflict in the marriage, right? Like, why won't you get one? And no one's right and no one's wrong in this situation. In fact, both people can be right.
Well, she probably feels like she's right, and he probably feels like he's right. And that's where the standoff comes, right? Because for a lot of women, it's like, why should I have to go do something else? I've already been pregnant. I have been on birth control. It messes me up. It messes with my hormones. I've had IUD. Like, all the things that women have said.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about us. I'm just saying, I've done the IUD. We've done this. We've done this. Like, for women, they're like, I have been through birth and pregnancy, and it's your turn. It's your turn. That's where a lot of women.
I mean, that was our discussion in our marriage, right?
Yeah, we did have. Yeah. Because birth control was not good for me. So I was like, I mean, everyone's bodies are different, and everyone's gone through different things. So I'm just saying, like, in general, she probably has some super valid points.
Yeah, and again, he may as well. So the point we're trying to make is they're both probably right. They both probably have very valid points. Right. No one's wrong. Right. So how do you get past something like this in marriage where there's a deadlock? And again, this can apply to so many different things. I'm sure many of you out there are listening and saying, "Yeah, we've had this happen in our marriage, or we're currently going through something like this." So one of the most common things that can happen in this situation, and again, we're throwing out examples. We're not saying this is what happened, but what could happen is the wife could say, "You know what, then, we're going to cut things off." She could give an ultimatum and say, "You know what, until you go get fixed and taken care of, we're not going to be intimate.
I'm not going to risk it.
I'm not going to risk it," right? Mm-hmm. And, or the husband can say, "You know what, I'm just not going to get it done, and we're going to take these risks," and that can make the wife feel very uncomfortable. And so, again, neither one is right or wrong, but that typically something's going to happen to try to resolve the situation. And it may be the wife saying, "I'm going to do this," or "I'm not going to be intimate," and the husband saying, "I'm not going to do this. I still want to be intimate." What do we do? Unfortunately, many marriages turn to that to where it's either this gets taken care of or else, right? The ultimatums are put out there. Mm-hmm. And although done trying to be intentionally good, that's going to cause a ton more conflict in the relationship. I think, too, it's important to point out that, if a wife is expressing these concerns to her husband, and the husband, doesn't want to get something done, it could come across that he's not, that her input isn't important, or he's not valuing what she says. And although that may not be the case whatsoever, that can come across that way. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this in our marriage with certain things that, I don't feel heard or valued or like my opinion matters because you're not listening. Again, this can happen in many, many different circumstances and different ways. So the question is, how do we get past that? And I think that's the question she kind of posed to us is, do you have any recommendations or thoughts? How do we get past this gridlock? And so that's what we're going to hopefully share our thoughts, opinions, because I do think that there's ways to get past the gridlock. I do think that there's ways to have a win-win situation. I think oftentimes in our marriage, we look at something as like, this needs to happen, and if it doesn't happen, then, things are going to be bad, right? Or it's an absolute right. Or we look at things like, I have to win, therefore there has to be a winner and a loser. Not necessarily from a winner or loser standpoint, but this has to happen. And when you define and say, well, this has to happen, sometimes there's a winner and a loser. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. You have. I want to jump in. I want to jump in and get your thoughts before we continue on with this episode.
I think that you want to just keep going. You're doing great.
No. Let's get your thoughts.
My thoughts are your thoughts. You have to come with a win-win for both of you. That's marriage, right? That's marriage. But if she's married to a man like me who's kind of stubborn.
Oh, this stubborn?
Bless your heart. You're very stubborn, and I've had to talk him into a lot of things over time. Lots of time, sometimes. It usually just takes a third party to talk him into something, and then I'm like, I told you so. And that's usually what happens, and that's what a lot of husbands say, but it's probably because they're stubborn, and they just need to hear it from another source.
Did you put
I'm not trying to make light of this, but I can think of a handful of things besides this situation where it's like, well, once he heard it from someone else, he was on board, but when it was our conversation, no.
Well, that's true. I heard from several men that the vasectomy was like a walk in a park.
He was like, heck no. And then he talks to other people and he's like, oh, okay, I'll do it.
In fact, 3 hours later, I took Amy out on a date night. Of course, there was no action that night because there couldn't be.
You mean 3 hours after you have it?
Had the vasectomy, yeah. 3 hours after I had the vasectomy, it was date night. I mean, it was a piece of cake.
Yeah. I'm sure that, I mean, this is not the subject, right? I'm not trying to talk anyone into doing it because that's between a husband and a wife. That's very personal. But there might be other reasons besides I just am scared of doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There might be other, I mean, yeah, like you were frightened. You're like, no way is that happening. But like, it's a pretty normal thing nowadays. But they're good at it. I watched it happen. It's a very simple process. But my point is it's deeper than that. Something, and it's about any kind of topic. If there's a standoff going on, there's a deeper reason, and you have to literally try to understand each other. Like, and if there's still a standoff, there has to become some kind of compromise.
Yeah.
There has to be, right? There are other ways to keep from getting pregnant. And if that's what you have to do in your marriage, that might be the solution. That might be the solution. Like, if you're... I don't want to... That's the thing. In this podcast, I don't want to say she's right, he's wrong, he's right, she's wrong. Like, there's no, we're not going to side with anyone because it's so personal. I'm just saying, like, you have to come to a solution. You have to, right?
In fact, they're both probably right. And so that's the question they're asking is, like, what do we do? We're in this gridlock. He says, no, I'm nervous about this. Mm-hmm. I think both of them probably respect how each other feel. And that's, so you're in a situation in marriage, whether it's this or anything else, where
let's think of some other situations real quick. So it's not all about this. Like, it might be moving and taking a new job. She wants to stay, he wants to go. Like, who's right, who's wrong? You might both might be working full time, and so it doesn't come down to he's the provider. Like, it's a real thing where we have to come up with a solution. That's really hard if someone's like, no, I'm not leaving. Yeah. Something like that, right? Or adopting a child, or getting pregnant. Hey, we're going to have another baby. That was a standstill in our marriage for a while. Nick was very much like, we're not ready. So there's just jobs. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's just lots of things where you can be like, it's not necessarily who's right or wrong. It's how do we find a middle ground? How do we come up with a solution that works for both of us? And that sometimes takes some time, and that sometimes takes a lot of prayer. For sure.
But let's keep on this example, and then we'll get into other things. So
I just didn't want to scare people away. Like, this is all we're talking about. This is about being in conflict and coming to a solution and not letting it destroy your marriage, no matter what it looks like.
So one of the things, and we're not saying this would happen, but one of the things that can happen is if one spouse is really pushed to do something or maybe just accept something, there's always going to be that resentment, right? And that the problem with that is the resentment builds over time and gets more frustrated and things like that. So if the wife of this situation said, yeah, we're just not going to make love till you go get it taken care of, she's going to start feeling a lot of resentment for her husband, especially if he doesn't get it taken care of. He's going to start feeling a lot of resentment for her, and that's just going to eventually cause a bigger wedge between the marriage, which is then going to bring other issues and how they handle other issues and things like that. So our recommendation would be, again, like Amy said, find a win-win. And there really is a win-win. Sometimes we feel like a win is to get my way or to get her way. But in reality, marriage is like a team. You have to compromise. And it might not be the perfect situation. It might not be that I get everything I want or Amy gets everything she wants. But it's something that we both look at it and say, you know what, for our relationship, this is a win for both of us. It might not be perfect, but I can totally live with that. And it allows us to move forward. So an example like this, the wife could say, hey, look, I feel very, very anxious. I'm worried we're going to get pregnant. I really don't want that. So if you don't want to get the vasectomy, what I need from you is, you got to wear some protection. Mm-hmm. Or, you know what, we can be intimate, but it's not going to be intercourse, right? Like, we're going to have to figure out other things to do that we can still be intimate together, but we're going to protect that from, making sure we don't get pregnant. And then it becomes, how do we figure this out together as a couple? And again, it might not be the ideal situation, but if you're both feeling a certain way and neither spouse is willing to kind of, I'm not going to go get a vasectomy, or, hey, I just don't feel comfortable until you go do that, then there's got to be other solutions. And again, those other solutions, like I said, could be, hey, we're only going to be intimate if you're wearing protection, or we're going to have to figure out other ways to be intimate, to be more creative, so that we don't have these concerns for our relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other thoughts? That's
no,
it.
That's...
from your standpoint.
From my standpoint, no, I absolutely agree with that. Like, it's the wife that usually does most of the nurturing and raising of the kids. The wife that grows the baby inside her, sacrifices her body, is sick for months and months at a time, sacrifices her. Like, I know it's both people's, to sacrifice, but if she's doing the mostly of the raising the kids, the delivery, like, I am very much like, yes, like, I don't feel like spouses should like cut each other off from stuff in the relation. Like definitely don't be like, we can't be intimate. I think feel that's going to just cause so many issues, but there are other solutions to that. Well, there are absolutely other solutions to that. So, you have to, I mean, this is such a hard topic and such a big decision. It's a very permanent decision. And I really feel like a couple needs to take this to prayer and to serious thought and keep having this. I mean, I don't know how long this conversation's been going, but I think it lasted a couple years in our marriage, not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to get pregnant. And I would, not trying to make light of this, but like, you get me pregnant, I'm like, you're raising this kid, I'm done. I'm in my 40s, right? Like, I can't do it now. It's been 13 years since we had a baby, whatever. Like, I think it's important to realize that's a really, obviously being intimate is a very important part of the marriage, but is also like, she does need some security. And I'm not saying that's always all the security. Like, I still feel like sometimes you need double. But I think it's really important that you come to a same agreement, whether it's a different solution or whatever that looks like. You have to find common ground eventually. And I think you have to be patient with each other. That's most of these things that we threw out are pretty big decisions. They're really big decisions.
Well, and the great thing that this couple's doing, is it sounds like they've had a lot of conversation on this. I mean, the email said, hey, we sat down, we rated how we feel. Mm-hmm. He feels, like a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 importance to not get one. She feels like a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, I think, on importance of how nervous and anxious she is. So both of them are obviously feeling, very, concerned about this situation. But again, I think the great news is, even though that's the case, rather than so many couples out there having that gridlock and saying, well, I'm not budging and I'm not budging, and all of a sudden that wedge starts happening in their relationship, the great news is, again, there are solutions to resolving these issues. And again, you have to look at it in marriage as a team. How do we resolve this issue? And again, it might not be the perfect situation, but it's something that we can both live with, we can both be happy with, and trying to understand how each other feel.
So I think in this situation, if he rates it, what did you say, like 6?
I think he was like a 6 or a 7, maybe.
A 7 as in 10. Like, I don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. I think as a wife, I would be like, I want to know all the reasons, and I want to understand you, and I want to care about understanding you, and I want to, what is keeping you, and I don't know what his reasons are. So it might be nervous. It might be that he doesn't trust it and he thinks it's a waste of time. It might be it's expensive. It might be that
am I going to have
heard
problems?
Some horror stories. It might be that he hasn't found someone that he trusts. I mean, there's lots of. It might be that he's against this for a religious belief. I don't know. There are some people.
I mean, let's face it. Anytime you're working under the hood, that's a pretty scary. That's a pretty scary thing.
It's pretty scary to have a baby too. So, I think you have to be like, what are the concerns, and then how do I help you? How do we approach these concerns? If it's not like it's against my religious beliefs, or it's a money issue. If it's literally like, I'm afraid, like, what can you do together to calm that? Can you go meet with several people that tell you how amazing and successful the rate is? And like ease that insecurity or that anxiety around it, right?
Well,
like,
because I was in this exact situation, right?
Right.
So for several years, I told Amy, I'm not getting one.
There's
no way I'm doing this. She's like, well, you're not getting me pregnant. And so we experienced this same thing. And again, it was me talking to several people, and they're like, oh my heck, that was a piece of cake. You know, and I think a lot of times...
I don't want to talk anyone into it, though, because I'm
100%.
That's very personal. That's very personal.
100%. But a lot of it was assumptions on my part and not understanding. And once I became more, I guess, familiar with the process and how everything works and things like that, educating myself, I guess.
Education.
But again, like Amy said, we're not here to say, here's what you should do or what you shouldn't do. We're saying... come up with a solution.
It has to be the two of you together.
Yeah, come up with a solution that works. And there are solutions. Like I said, it's as simple as like, okay, we need to use protection. We're going to find other ways to be intimate. Like we're going to work around these issues.
If you're scared, if you're a wife and you're like, I am scared of getting pregnant, I do not want to get pregnant, then stay on the outside.
Yeah, it really is that simple.
It is what it is. I mean, there's no risk there. Is that on?
Yeah.
So... there's no risk on. Sorry, we're having a technical issue. It wasn't on. I think you need to talk about these and not let yourselves get disconnected from each other. That's the big thing. We've had a lot of issues in our marriage when it came to the financial, the first 10, 15 years of our marriage, stubbornness. We could easily get disconnected and be like, you're bugging, I'm cutting you off. Like, we're done having this disagreement. I think you have to be like, how do we stay one during this? How do we try to understand both sides? And how do we find a solution? And I can't say this is the solution. That is up to the couple.
For sure.
I just want to make sure everyone knows that. It's up to the couple. On this topic, it's up to the couple.
But the great thing about it is there's always a solution. The solution might not be something that's 100% for you. Mm-hmm. The solution might be, you know what? That's not the ideal thing, but I can live with that. Mm-hmm. Right? And so
there's give and take in marriage. Sometimes one person has to give, another person gets to take. And then other situation comes up and the other person gives and the other person takes. That's marriage, right?
But you have to have those discussions and have that give and take, because if you don't, right. There's so many people that get divorced and when they have been talked to, they don't even remember the thing that caused the reason for them to get divorced, but that there was something that caused that and put their marriage to a point to now where they're getting divorced, but they don't even remember what that was. And so it's so important to get these things resolved, work together as a couple, and be unified as to how you're going to handle this or other situations moving forward. Again, the natural person is like, well, I'm going to give them an ultimatum and this is the way it's got to be. Mm-hmm. When that happens in marriage, you're going to be heading down the wrong path.
And resentment's so hard to get over. So the least you can keep things from escalating to that point, so much better.
Yeah, for sure.
So much better. I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a tough email. It's hard to do a conversation around it because it is so personal. There's so many feelings. There's so much.
Yeah.
It's big. It's a big one.
There's so many things we don't know. And again, this is just Amy's and my personal opinion as to how we have handled the situation, because we've been in the similar situation, and how we would handle certain situations. Again, and like Amy said, everyone's so personal and different. Mm-hmm. But we found this to really work in our relationship with not only this, but so many other things, to where we sit down and talk about things. We're like, you know what? I know you feel really strongly about how you feel. I feel strongly about how I feel. Mm-hmm. How do we find a compromise? And there's been a lot of things that we've compromised in our marriage and that are great. I mean, it's like they don't cause any conflict. Yeah, maybe it's not like 100%, but if I'm getting 80% and Amy's getting 80%, that's something we can both be very, very happy with. And then we're able to move on and not have it be an issue in the marriage anymore. There's
been some real standstills, and I don't want to make light of this, but in our marriage, there's been some real standstills. And I have learned that if I bring a third party in, it'll usually, Nick will be like, oh, okay, like I understand now. So in this situation, if it's getting to a point where it's really wrecking your relationship, I would probably spend the money and time to find a good therapist. Let us know if you need one. To sit down with you and dive into the deeper problem here, because it might be something deeper than just like, we can't agree on this.
Yeah.
And maybe not in this situation exactly, but in a lot of couple situations, I do feel like we wait until things get so dark and disconnected, and they put these barriers up, and then more barriers, and then
so much damage has been done, right?
And I feel like if you were just like, put your pride to the side and be like, this is causing a major drift in our marriage, let's just get a third party involved and find someone that that you have good recommendations for, and really trust, they're a good therapist, or just somebody professional that you're like, okay, this is maybe it's a church leader or something, I don't know. And be like, we really need a third opinion on this and how to get through this. I do feel like sometimes when you're on a standoff in your own marriage, like that can be helpful. And I'm not super like run to therapists. Like, how we feel about that. Obviously it has to be someone you super trust. Like there were so many years that we're just like, nope, we're anti-therapists. If we would have just gone and gotten some help in those really tough years, that probably would have saved us years, but we were too stubborn. We're like, we can fix this ourselves. But
we did learn a lot.
We learned a lot from going through it ourselves, but we didn't I guess we did get to a breaking point.
Yeah,
but if something gets you to that point, instead of letting it break you, like sometimes a third party is very helpful. And sometimes it opens your eyes up to the other person's perspective, and that can be really helpful too. So I'm just saying, like, this, if we didn't answer your question, you might be to a point where maybe you do need to go to a therapist. Or someone you trust, and get a third party to help you understand each other, or help them to maybe come to terms. I'm not saying which spouse, but maybe help them come to terms on why this is so important to you. And they might change their mind. You've changed your mind several times on things. I have. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it wasn't a therapist. It was just like, whether it was mutual friends that we talked to or someone we really respected, it's helped our relationship to not always hold everything in, but to reach out to other people and just get other people's perspective. It's really helps. So.
Well, and let's be honest, right? And you couples that are out there listening as well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But a lot of times it's how it's approached, right? Mm-hmm. If something's approached in the right way, we're a lot more open to talking about it and saying, yeah, let's talk about this. If something's approached in a totally different way, we put up our guard, we get defensive, and we say, no way I'm doing that, right? And I will admit personally, in our marriage, our relationship, there's been times that I've probably been stubborn and put up my guard and said, yeah, not happening. But I do really feel like so much is the way how a situation or how things are approached, and just the tone of how things are approached can a lot of times dictate how something gets resolved. I'm not saying that happens across the board, but I think a lot of you out there are probably shaking your heads and saying, yeah, I'd probably be a lot more open to discussing this or getting this resolved if he wouldn't have approached me this way, or vice versa, right? And so I think it's just, that's so important as well too, is like just how we approach different problems or situations with love and trying to understand, right? And in our marriage, one of the things, Amy, like that has been amazing is, I think earlier on, we're both pretty stubborn people, but I think earlier on there were certain situations where she's just like, no, I'm not, we're not talking about it, or I'm not doing it, or whatever. But
I'd love to hear what.
Lately, like there's been things in our marriage where Amy's like come to me, she's like, I'm really trying to understand how you feel and why you feel this way. And that's meant a lot to me, because I'm like, oh, she actually, even though she thinks totally different or looks at something totally different, she's trying to truly understand how I feel about something. That creates a great dialogue. And when she's approached things that way, like I'm way more like open to like understanding and trying to get something resolved, because she seems truly wanting to understand why I feel the way I do.
I think, and I'm not saying this, I don't know, I didn't even read the email, Nick was just telling me about it, but in this situation, I don't know how she approached this or what's going on, I don't know details, but if I was to be like, you're getting a vasectomy, we are not getting pregnant, I'm making you an appointment, he'd be like, no, I'm not. You know, if I'm like, no, you are, and I nagged for years in the tone that like I was mad about it, I think it would change the whole dynamic. If I'm like, look, I really want to understand, this is really important to me. I really want you to understand how important this is to me. I think what you're saying is like tone can make all the world of difference, and sometimes it's too late. I mean, you already hit this wall, and it's just like we're so disconnected. Whatever, you can't just be like. I do feel like you can change the tone of it, but like starting out with something that's really important to you, and like we've learned that instead of just getting, and we are stubborn. We're both super stubborn. So the way it like comes out and comes across is either going to make me more stubborn about it, or it's going to make me open up my heart to it and be like, okay, I'm trying to understand you. Big difference. Big difference. We've learned that.
Yeah.
Oh, have we learned that?
And we're not saying that works 100% of the time, but it does work often.
It works better often, yes.
Yeah. And again, there are certain things or certain circumstances where you just, you have to come to an agreement and say, okay, this isn't going to work for you. It's not going to work for me. What do we throw in here, and how do we figure out a plan that does work for both of us, even if it's not ideal? And I think that's probably the best way to do things, because, I mean, let's face it, that's the way marriage is. It's kind of give and take, and doing things for the relationship instead of doing things specifically for ourselves.
So to wrap this exact story up, I would say having a baby and getting pregnant is a really big deal, especially for a wife that is done having children. Her body is changing. For me in my 40s, like absolutely hard no. Like we've been done for a long time. So for me, I'm like, if I don't feel safe, then I'm going to need some different layers of protection, because it's going to come down on me if something happens, right? So in this situation, I'm looking for multiple layers of
You're looking for
security.
A pair of sweatpants under the Levi's and a wetsuit and all these things to where like we're not even...
I'm just saying I understand where she's coming from.
No, I do
because
too.
Because it comes
Trust
down
me.
to the woman, and I understand why she's like, I need that security. I'm not saying it has to come down to that security, but I'm saying she has a right to feel that need for security.
1,000%.
I think we both agree on that. I think the continual conversations and figure out the underlying deep problems. I don't know why he's against it, so I don't know what to say on that. I think praying about it, trying to understand each other about it, maybe getting a third opinion about... figure out what the deeper stuff is going on, and just realizing it does come down to her body. Like it's a really big deal. And so if that doesn't end up being the solution, there are other solutions, and that's going to be a choice that you both have to make, you know?
Yeah, her concerns are totally valid. Because again, if she gets pregnant, she's the one that has to go through all that, raising the child, everything like that. And so,
the women are the
100%.
nurturers, whether you want to admit it or not, for the majority of the time. Yeah.
Well, and the fact that she's taken the fact that she's reaching out and taking the position that she's taken is awesome, actually. I mean, she sounds like an amazing woman. Like she's really, truly trying to figure things out. Like she's, she has very valid concerns.
So, yeah, anyone in this situation... Hopefully that was helpful. I don't know.
And also in other situations as well, too. So.
Yeah, in any situation like that. It's really, really hard. We've been through it. It's hard. Keep going.
Bottom line,
keep going.
sit down, talk about things. If you can't come to an understanding, or if you can't figure things out, try to come to a solution that may not be ideal, but it still can get you moving forward and make you feeling good. Right?
Yeah,
like
and don't cut off intimate time. There's other ways to be careful. So intimate time is important. After emotional connection. I have to say that. After emotional connection, intimate time is very important.
And I guess since we're talking about intimacy, if you need some good intimate products, shop.ultimateintimacy.com. They can be game changers for so many couples, including us. So go check it out. Email us with any questions that you may have. And as always, we appreciate listening to the podcast. And until next time, we hope all of you find ultimate intimacy in your relationship.